Thank you for joining us. This is True Rebels Attain Victory lunch break discussions with Travis Sellers.
John Wilson.
Yes, today we're going to talk about the violence in Philadelphia. Oh man, it's been terrible. We unfortunately we have because we work for a nonprofit, we have experienced the death of one of our members, and it hit hard and it hit home. Not saying that the other deaths are not significant, but we realized that, I guess you're awakening that. I don't know. What is it?
No, I think you said it's very close to home.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, that we are, to me, people are in this mixed, they go between like, oh man, this is new things happening, like the new violence. And I always think that people were violent anyway, right? And I think, my take on it is that we just have to reassess. Yeah.
So my take on it is similar to yours. I think my take on it is that it's always been violence, and it's always in Philadelphia, cities like Philadelphia, it's always been pretty heavy.
Right.
But these numbers are being are compounded and are so much more heavier due to the easy accessibility of weapons. There's like this ridiculous arms race, in America, especially in our inner cities. But I would say that that's probably not true as well. I think that there's an arms race in general. I think that regardless of where you are, whether or not it's the city, the suburbs, or rural,
yes, people have guns.
People have guns.
Man,
you know what I mean? And people have a lot of them. You know what I mean?
A lot of them.
And they're way more easily accessible than they ever have been. And they've always been, we've always had a gun culture, with the gun being a powerful symbol of autonomy, a powerful symbol of freedom.
You always say that. There's like,
it is to me.
To you always say it's like it's a powerful tool. I mean, if you think of the essence of it, like the basic human essence,
right?
The safety.
Well, and not only that, certainly safety.
Yeah,
certainly safety,
and being able to enact your will or power on someone else.
And that's my point. That's the reason why it's a powerful symbol of autonomy, because it either does one or two things. It either, like you said, it either gives you the ability to impose your will on other people, or it stops them from imposing their will on you.
Wow. Yeah.
So the gun in this culture has always been
so bad.
Right. Well, right.
I hate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's always been this thing where if you are armed properly, you can thwart anything. And unfortunately, in cultures like this where there's a gun culture, you think that the weapon or the gun is the symbol for all that ails you, right? And it isn't, right? And then the unintended consequences, or maybe the actual intended consequences, are that young people in these communities are wantonly committing violence and killing each other, right? So I get it. So unfortunately, we have entered this weird period in this nation where it's kind of like the old westerns, right? And I love westerns, right? Old westerns, all types, right? And now this is literally the place where we are, where if you have a gun and the other person has a gun, and you don't like how they look, you don't like how they do their hair, you don't like their shoes, they say something that you don't like, any plethora of problems that you can have with a person that should not end in violence ends in violence. And that's what cowboy movies are, right?
But so in Philadelphia, do you think, I think it's a little bit more complex in Philly. I mean, I'm only talking about Philly because I live in Philly, but I think that if you take, copy and paste this to other cities and across the United States, it's pretty much the same way, right? Or am I wrong?
No, of course. I think it's the same.
Or similar. So I think like in Philly, like it's the neighborhoods or the different blocks, right?
Okay. Like city and neighborhood. So,
yeah.
So just to give it some context, in the city of Philadelphia so far, just this year, since September, there have been 388 people that were killed.
Since last September.
Since last September, I think this was taken, I think it was the 22nd or something like that, the 22nd of September, whatever it was. Wow. I know it was in September, right? 388 people. The year ended with 562 murders. Now, we're in September again, right? And September last year, just to give you context, September last year, there were 383 murders. This year, at the same time, there are 388.
Okay, so we're a little bit above that.
We increased it.
Okay.
Right. So there's been an increase of about 19% already. And we are not even at the end of the year yet, right? We're still in September. We're not even at, December yet.
Right.
So that number, that 562 number, it's trending in the wrong direction. You know what I mean? We might be past that. But the point is that just in this city alone, you're talking about 562 murders. And then so it begs the question, where is this coming from? Like why are these numbers so gaudy? Like, why are these numbers so wide and big and getting bigger?
So that is the question, right? Why is it so much? And even when we had a discussion last time, when we brought one of our guest speakers in, they asked that question.
Absolutely.
Why is it so much violence?
Right.
Man, I was thinking that, of course I have all the answers. So no, I don't think anyone has the answers, right?
Right.
No one has the answers. But just listening to some of the guys, first of all, on the base level, a lot of the young people, because guns are already on the streets, so they didn't bring the guns here, right?
Sure. Right.
So the guns are already here. And then the drugs are already here. Or I don't know if that's correlated, but it's still, I think it's
Sure, there's some causality there.
Yeah.
Sure, of course.
So that
you can map that.
So, and then you add education and job opportunities and things like that.
Right.
So I think all of that mixed in, it's so hard to pinpoint it. It's so hard because, of course, you know that if I live on a block where I'm not engaged in education, more often I'm going to be more susceptible to engaging with people who are into having guns and using them, right?
Okay, right. I think that stands to reason.
Yeah. For whatever, I mean, it's a plethora of reasons, right, out there that you could be engaged in that. And I don't want to say, this is just one thing, because I think even if you're not into that, like if you're just hanging out, because I remember when I was a kid, the person that I knew that got murdered early on in my life, I think he was 16. I think he just turned 16. And we played football together, but I think he was moved up in the age group and I was back. So I must have been like 14 or 15. But I don't think he was in the streets like that. Like,
okay.
He wasn't, but he was hanging out with folks.
Right.
And he just got caught up. And I think it was just an engagement type of thing, like, a fight. Then it turned into, the gun.
Okay. Okay.
So it wasn't even about drugs. It's just that a person had access to a gun. And then, like you said, I'm going to enact my will upon you because I have the weapon.
Right. Sure. It changes the dynamics of things. Right. So it changes the dynamics of things. And, so you brought up an interesting point, I think, we talked about education and stuff like that. Remember, you and I, we often have discussion about the direct correlation between what we think, or what I think sometimes is a lack of education leading to violence. Like those who at least have a high school diploma or a GED, the numbers go down for those who have a high school diploma or a GED or college education, and they go way up. The violence goes way up for those who don't. And there's a direct correlation between them, and the causality that you were talking about in terms of drugs and that mix and stuff like that. Of course, that's part of it. You've got people who want to rely on the underground economy, who want to rely on other non-traditional ways of, or regular business ways, or being
traditional pathways to economics.
Right. All right.
But I think it's always been criminal, though.
Well, so there's always that.
Not to go there, but
there is. A subject like this. Again, is one of those things where we kind of will have to add some context to it, and may have to do one or two different shows on it, because the number one, time constraints, and number two, because it may require a little more of
Right,
our
right.
research to get to our point. But the reality is, in our communities, yes, a lack of quality educational opportunities, a lack of um, opportunities in terms of either business or things like that can contribute to it. But I don't want to leave this conversation without saying whatever it is that ails our community, and I'm going to be clear with this,
All right.
whatever it is that ails our community, whether it be a lack of economic opportunities, educational opportunities, violence, and things like that, all of those things, the solutions to them lies within us.
I definitely agree with
It
that.
does not lie with the government. It
Right.
does not lie with religion necessarily. It doesn't rely on anything other than us. And the more we're able to, don't get me wrong, I know that there are systemic things. I know that a lot of these things happen due to systems. And I know some of those systems are well ingrained in racism. I get that. And in other things that tend to hold our community and other communities back. I get that. But what
Right.
I'm saying is there is very little that can stop this or other communities when they have a common cause and they fight for it. When they look at themselves, when we look at ourselves and we say, what could I do differently here? Where can I do something better? How did I fail this young man? Like the first thing I said to you, we went to, again, one of our participants, one of our members, a young man, he was killed, he was murdered. And one of the things that I said to Travis right out the gate was, I wonder what could I have done? It makes you feel. Now, I know that there wasn't anything. I know that the reality is that young people are going to do what young people are going to do, and people engage in whatever activity for any number of reasons. I get that, but when someone like that, when you lose someone like that, your instant thought is, if you interact with them a little bit, is, did I fail that person? What could I have done differently? Right. What can I do differently in the future?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what
And I actually felt that way.
Right.
I actually felt that.
Right.
Until you said something, I was like, yeah, man. I mean, it's so many, but
right. So
many feelings you can have.
There's so many feelings you can have. But I would argue as well. I wouldn't argue, but I would say that, like, that's kind of where the discussion begins, man. Like we've got to collectively, like, people have to collectively, just families, not like you and I. Like, you and I have those discussions with our families. There are lots of people that may look at this who also have those discussions in their families, right, and should be willing to discuss that openly with neighbors and friends and other family members. That right. You have to have that discussion. Like, in what way can we make this better? Because here's the thing: the reality on the ground is this. Ain't no politician in politics or anything like that going to change the situation, and you don't even know who's in your and who to vote for until it comes time to vote, right? You don't actually even know who the council members are, Congress people are, Senate people are, and how they can help you until November rolls around, which we're coming up on November now.
So I mean, all those things that you're saying, I think about those things too. And coming up to the discussion that we're going to have on the violence in Philadelphia, you can go so many places. It's like
that's
you said,
what I mean.
You have to really
right.
hone it in. And I think, what you're saying about our responsibility as, people who are like our age or, coming, not really involved with that, is to at least speak about it. And I think that's what we're doing here with this platform, is to at least start the conversation. If there are other conversations out there, we can join conversations with others. But I was thinking, like, first, unfortunately, I think it goes back to self-identity first. We have the discussions on the N-word, and I think that as long as we keep that negative stigma and lexicon amongst us and freely discuss it, if we say, oh, is it the term of endearment or not? But I think we use it as, disparaging remarks towards one another. As long as we keep that up first, I think that's going to be a negative impact on us as a community, as a people, because we don't look at each other as human, right? And if you don't look at each other as human, it's easy to kill you. And it's easy to be at war with you because you're not really human, right. And you're nothing, right? I don't see myself as anything because I'm that inward. Because if I'm nothing, you can't be anything.
Right, right.
And then the jealousy is that if I'm nothing, you can't. You can definitely be nothing because you are inward. You are inward, right? And you can't have money. You can't have access to women. You have any of that. I have envy. And if you live on the next block that looks better than mine, maybe I got it in for you too. Or if you speak like, whatever it is, you are not supposed to have that. That's what I think it comes from, that, that interpersonal struggle that we have just being here in the United States for self-identity. Like, we go through it. Like, I even go through it now. Like, I'm like, hell, we're black or we're African-American? It's like, it's so weird. And we don't agree on anything. So it's like, you can't, even the people who are, what you would seem like not involved, we're so disorganized to the view.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we are disorganized. We look disorganized. We look disorganized. So it's hard to respect, that political process, the educational process, the economic process that we are saying. I don't even know if we really talk about it. And I think that's a strategy too, to kind of dumb down all of our educational advancements, political advancements, because it's a lot of politicians. But we have some, we did have some detriments in our society in terms of like the economics, education. Like, we are
absolutely
not advancing as far as I think racism has progressed.
No, we haven't.
we lost the competition in terms of the progression of it.
Right. No,
and I think that we see the impact now.
I would agree with that. I think, so, hey, man, even though the education is not there, even though certain things are not there, and that's terrible. But again, I would submit, and that anything that plagues us as a community, everything that plagues us, I think, as a community, is something that can be worked on. And I'm seeing it, honestly, I think that I'm seeing it more, and I'm really proud of seeing different organizations so enthusiastic with young people with these wonderful ideas of how to correct certain ailments in our communities. I like seeing that. It's always important for us to always include young people in anything that we do. Their energy, their ideas, their creativity are absolutely pivotal to the success of our nation, to the success of our people and nation. Each generation, it is so important to get them involved. You know what I mean? So there are lots of things that you and I know, or certainly me being the senior here, knows and have done that worked really well. But there are going to be so many more great things that young people will do. That we can help them with. Because here's the thing, man. The reality is, man, anything that, again, it blows my mind as I think about it right now, that all of the things that we can do, and that actually how far we've come. Right? As bad as it may seem, we've come a long way in terms of our growth and development in this nation. As it relates to almost every metric that you can measure, how our lives are being impacted and how, we can move forward. The answers are there.
But, the thing is that even when you're saying that, we control more of our educational institutions, like back in the 1800s and 1900s, right, than today. We have more doctors, black male doctors, men doctors, back in the day, back in the 1800s than we do now.
Yeah, we had more black doctors. I think it was 18.
Right. Yeah. It was like right after the Reconstruction period.
Right. So it was right after the Reconstruction period. There were more black male doctors then than there are now. And that goes into another, almost another subject.
It does.
And part of that subject you and I talked about, recently was to outright encourage young people, people that we know and young people, to go into medicine and to go into different.
But you can't do it if you can't read. You can't do it if you go to school. You're under siege with, I guess we say, other classmates that are not prepared for education. They're looking to dance and do TikToks. Say no, I'm sorry, but or no,
right, but I mean, I know,
it's almost true.
No, it is. I agree.
And you have kids that are looking to be rappers. Like the whole school's being rappers, and no one wants to do the hard stuff, like which is science and math.
And some of that.
And then if you got beef with somebody, that's how you get on. You get beef with somebody, you become a better rapper, popular rapper.
So
no, is that not true?
No, I think it is true. I think it is true. So again, that goes into another, subject, right? Drill music, right?
But
so even the drill music phenomenon, which is overtaking, a lot of the youth, young people, and the music that they love, is one that people have an issue with because it outright encourages violence, right? It only encourages violence, right? As a genre, a music genre. So those are things that we got to discuss too, right? Because you and I, we talked about before, a lot of times in our communities, where you have like this huge universe to make money, right? So if somebody is interested in being an entrepreneur and making money, right, it is vast. I mean, it is really vast in terms of how you can make money, how you can, run a business or do something, to support your lifestyle. Unfortunately, oftentimes in the Black community, if you did a poll of 10 kids and you said, what would you like to be? They're going to say a ball player, a rapper, or they're going to do the underground economy. Those are three things out of what would be an amazing universe of what you can do to make money. So we've got to be able to, I think that part of it is that just in terms of the educational system, in terms of us as parents and friends and neighbors and brothers and sisters, we got to help encourage our young people to expand their idea of what it is to make a living, right, and what it is to have that lifestyle. Because I know what it is. They're attracted to, the cars, the fame, the money, the girls. I get that. But the interesting thing is that if you do well in any number of industries, you will have that anyway. You will have that anyhow. It's just that they're looking at, the microwavable process of what they see now. Like as soon as they put the song on, as soon as they put the video on, they instantly see it. So, for them, I like the microwave version. I like going from, trapping 2 ounces to this. They go from this to that, and they see that and they say, well, that's what I want. And I get that. But the reality is, which is, silly and ridiculous and not true, in that regard. But what I'm saying is that we have to help them kind of expand, realizing in this universe of so many wonderful things that you can do to make piles of money, not just make a living, but piles of money. So there are lots of other things to do. So you think that,
I don't know, like if you have like violent individuals in the community, and I think it's few, it's not a majority of people. Given the numbers that we have. So it's not a majority of people. You said how many people were?
So, well, at this point, there are 300. Actually, that was that number has changed a little bit. It's 388 now, but it's changed.
But the total number of people shot.
Right.
It's different. Those are just murders, right?
Right. The total number of people were shot were, so here's an interesting thing. There were 1,300 Black people shot, 108 white people shot, 242 Hispanic people that just identify as Hispanic, right, were shot. 1,300 versus 108 and 242.
Wow.
So they're
we're using guns a lot more often than
on each other.
Okay, so I'm trying to think. But if I saw 1,300 people, let's say like if it's 1,300 people that actually shot, so that's got to be more. Let's say like it's double the amount that are prepared to shoot, which is 2,600. Wow.
Right.
I'm just thinking like, what can I say to a person, the 2,600 people or the 5,000 people? Like really today, like what can I do that can change the dynamic of violence? And I really don't know. I really can't say, because all of those complex issues, first of all, will they really get to understand? Like, I understand where you're going with this, with the educational piece. So maybe I need to go back to school.
Right.
Maybe I need to
Right.
really hone into my skills, right?
Right.
I mean, can they really do that, or would they be open to that? Because the violence and then it's trauma. It's like if you know someone who got shot,
Right.
like you have trauma. Like it's like,
Absolutely.
you like absolute fear
Right.
that you're gonna die, and then someone else you know is gonna die, and now I have to go kill this person because if I don't, my whole personality. No, what do you call that? Not my whole personality. My whole character is based on me now getting revenge.
Right, you gotta have a rep. See, in the street,
Yeah.
you gotta have a rep. So you look like a sucker if you don't exact revenge on the guy who killed your friend or your family member. Now you look like a sucker. Or at least that's what you think.
So you think a person like that is going to be like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna go back to school, or I'm gonna get back into the education.
I think that number may be low, but I also think that we still gotta have that conversation. And I say that because you and I were just in the office couple of days ago,
Right.
speaking with a young man who recently had gotten booked.
Sure did.
And came, he did his time. He came out, and now he's
Such
looking,
a disappointment too.
in ways that you wouldn't understand. This type of work, quite frankly, is very humbling. I gotta tell you, it is very humbling.
Yeah.
It is. You know what I mean? Because you often pour so much into people, young people, and at the moment where you think you get it, you just realize that they absolutely don't. And even if they get it, they make the decision to do whatever it is that they want to do that is absolutely counter to what you told them.
So you think that
What could help them?
So he wasn't actually in violence that we know of, right?
Yeah, but he had a weapon,
Yeah, he did.
so he was in violence.
So I mean, yeah, I guess some people come back from it. I guess get in enough trouble before they actually go to the
Right,
very dark end of it, which
Right.
is like actually taking a life.
right.
It just seems.
But conversely, it's odd. The young man that was killed, because we even asked that gentleman. We asked him as I'm OG. I'm an old guy, so I'm asking the question: what's the draw? Like, I don't get it. Like,
Oh yeah, what is the draw?
what is the draw? Like,
I mean, this kid
help me out.
He was a basketball player, and I mean,
And good.
you saw the clips.
Right, exactly. Like this kid.
It wasn't
was
like, oh yeah, I'm good, but we saw the clips.
right. We saw the clips. We
And
saw
he
it
was-
right.
and he was doing it since he was 8 because his
Empirical
coaches said
evidence.
they knew him. They coached him, not
since
they
8.
coached him since he was 8 years old.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like he wasn't already on a pathway.
Right.
Because I know the school he went to.
Okay.
My own sons went to that school.
Okay.
So it was like he was already on the pathway of
Right.
what we're saying, education and
But something
engagement.
Something happened there.
I know, that's what
because if you notice, they actually, a couple of them said that he played with their sons.
Yeah.
And and one of them in particular said his actual son, and their friends that he played with are in college. What happened with him in that period of time? See, something happened with him in that period of time where he stopped either going or achieving academically, or got distracted and didn't take that same trajectory. All of them were on that same trajectory, but the reality is that kid on more than 1 or 2 occasions had 20 and 20. Like, that's, like 20 points and 20 assists that's an amazing night of basketball for those who may not know the stats. But yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that he's responsible for his demise, but I'm not, leading to that at all. But he had those resources around him.
Right.
As like some people, he's this lost person. He doesn't have any resources. But,
Right.
And I know,
But he had them.
Yeah, and I know people who I grew up with that had resources too, and probably had more resources than I had.
Sure.
And they turned that corner to the streets.
Okay.
And
so
I'm
we
just
know
like,
that. Okay.
it's like such a tough, and I always think about like, I guess 1,300 is a lot of shootings.
1,300 is yes,
People
it is.
to be shot.
Absolutely.
For our people.
Sure.
Compared to like 200.
Right.
But I'm still thinking like, what is, and the only thing I can come up with is just interpersonally, man. It's just weird, in trouble.
Yeah.
And it can be, economics, whatever. I don't know,
so
man.
we know. I mean, hey, man, and I mean, we call it what it is. In order for it to be something like that, we know that there's some deep-seated self-hatred that goes on in the Black
That's what I
community.
think it is.
And that's evidence of it. I mean, there are other ethnic groups that have disputes like us, that have problems like us. All those other ethnic groups have guns like us.
Right.
They look at each other. They don't respect each other as much. Just like any other. All people have that in their community,
Right.
except for one has 1,334 shootings, and one has 108. All right, and
That's
one
crazy.
has 242. Okay,
I think we got to get down to that level, man.
So there's an issue there.
That is an issue.
And I wanted to make one point that you made that I thought was real poignant about the young man that was murdered. I remember you saying, we were discussing it afterwards, like, what was going on with that young man, that others had that trajectory and went into college, and him being so good that he didn't. You said something to the effect that I think that part of where he might have veered off was where he was beginning to realize this basketball thing was not going to really happen for him.
That could be.
And when you said that, it hit me. I was like,
yeah. I mean, sometimes that could be. I mean, if you're doing something all your life and you're like planning for this to, be, I guess, a sort of a map to economics, and it's not working out the way that you think it's going to work out.
Right.
I mean, because there's other things you can do. Like, I mean, because he was that good. I mean, he could have still. I think he still could have. He's small. He was small. Right.
Right.
Small.
So that was an issue.
But I think he still could have did
Not
something.
insurmountable.
Right. But I just remember when I was, didn't make it into the athletic world. It was, you had to take a.
Sure, you take a hit. Right.
Emotionally.
Right,
I mean, I literally consider myself depressed. I didn't go, of course, seek any counseling.
Right.
But I feel like I was depressed for some time.
Of course you were. I'm certain you were.
Of not making it, and then having the discussion with other people, because I know just like people know, oh man, what you doing now?
First of all, bro, I'm keeping a bean. If I was your height and weight and I didn't make it, I would too. All right, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'd be absolutely depressed.
So imagine
I'm only
having those conversations.
But so
I mean,
what?
literally, since
So
you
what?
like 20 something, all the way up to like 30 something years old, people are like, oh man, I know you play basketball.
Right.
Oh, I know
Even
you
when
play
they see
for the
you now.
Sixers.
Right.
Yeah,
Even when they
it's
see you
like,
now, you know what I mean? So
did you play for the Sixers?
Right,
And it's
exactly.
like, can you imagine like coming out of the failure
right.
and getting those
Right.
questions?
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I help children get their education.
No, it's not.
So
It's not even funny. See,
I'm just saying, so
That's-
what?
exactly.
The bottom line,
That
this
is
is right.
depressing.
That's what would be looked at as depressing to the average individual, but not you. And that's the reason why you're still here. My point is that it's about problem solving. Life is about problem solving, and unfortunately, sometimes some of our young people, regardless of ethnic background or socioeconomic background, a lot of times they don't have coping skills and don't have serious survival skills. Like sometimes you have to be able to, okay, you got to take a pivot. Life takes a roadblock comes here, you take a pivot. You don't end it all on that, and you can't tie one industry or your education or some type of failure to the rest of your life. Like if this is it, that's going. Don't get me wrong. I get the whole that corny stuff. Get rich or die trying. You know what I mean? I get that. And so what's happening is with that type of messaging in the Black community, with a marginalized community such as ours, and those who think that they can't overcome some of those things, they use that as an excuse so that they can go ahead and get it over with. So look, I'm gonna get rich or I'm gonna shoot everybody on the block. I'm gonna get rich or I'm gonna die trying because I'm going based on this great philosopher 50 Cent, right? So it's 50 Cent, whoever his name is. So the bottom line is, they're looking at that as a template, right, for what is successful for them. And clearly it's not working and it's damaging in our community. So all I'm saying is that, okay, so a guy can be 6'8", 6'7", whatever, have a glorious collegiate career, and things may not work out. Okay, so what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? Now I'm going to end it all because I've attached my my life completely to that. No. You pivot and you go into other things. And to your point where you was about to go, there are so many other industries that are attached with athletics or different things like that.
I mean, if you think about the NFL, it's an industry in itself.
Absolutely.
The NBA is an industry in itself. And now they just open it up to the WNBA. Now that's becoming more of an industry.
Sure.
There's so many aspects you can go into. But I will say that, in terms of why there's violence and just trying to tie in all those interpersonal struggles that we're having. And unfortunately, just having the discussion, just for the minutes that we were having it all goes back to education, because I think the more knowledge base that you can
I say
have,
it all the time. Sure.
It can kind of keep you balanced, because because I think that a lot of people don't read. A lot of black men don't read. We need to read more. That's one thing. We need to read more. It kind of brings an interpersonal discipline of centering yourself, being able to sit down, to focus on the thing, to expand your mind, to think about other things besides what's on, your initial thought
current to
pattern.
your thought. Right.
Sure. You'd be able to, expand your thought. And so you'd be able to think about, all right, so what am I going to do tomorrow? All right, what am I going to do tomorrow so that I can get to a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line? Because I'm reading, I'm expanding my mind. And I think that if you have that discipline early on, you kind of have a better, I guess, emotional IQ. That's what I personally believe. And there's some of the studies out there will show you that that reading has benefits and even helps you sleep.
So hey, it's a cure-all. So let's just go ahead and get it out there. But it is.
Reading unlocks the mysteries of life.
It unlocks. It does so many things. I've often told you that I believe, and I still believe, that reading absolutely saved my life growing up in North Philadelphia. I'm convinced of that. But I have the evidence of that. I mean, it was one of the things that helped me. That when I read a book, if it could take me to like an island destination, another country, if it was well written, it put me in a time period in that country and just helped me to expand my imagination. It put me there, and that kind of thing, putting me there for hours, put me there instead of somewhere else. So for me, reading was and still is, even though I don't read as much as I would like to. Right. I love reading, but the whole, just to also add this into the mix, everything is not absolutely completely dire in the Black community, obviously, here in Philadelphia. I mean, there are lots of resources here in Philadelphia, and I would encourage you to go to phila.gov. I would encourage you to, you could Google any number of youth organizations in Philadelphia. If you think you have a young person that needs assistance with their GED, we're talking so much about education. If you have someone who needs to get their high school diploma or their GED, or if you think they need to have more services in terms of vocational training, right, construction, computers, any number of things that you can think of, any number of industries, Google those things. And you can also, you can respond to us. We will be able to assist any young people with helping them to determine some of their goals and getting them to, realizing some of the things that they could be doing in terms of their education, in terms of their career. So it's not all dire. There are lots of resources out there. If you do just a simple Google search, you will find so many things out there. And we need to be encouraging children with that information, providing that information to people, even kids who we see that we don't know. We think he's in trouble. Look, man, maybe that'll help you out. But the resources are there. We may have to be a little more proactive in getting them and giving them to other people.
That's true. And I would say that, unfortunately for me, I have nothing really to offer a person who is like under the threat of, but education, but to do the traditional pathways of getting yourself out of the situation. If someone that was murdered, I would say, I'm not saying you have to forgive people, but you got to move on towards your growth and development to preserve yourself, and then maybe help your family avoid the same type of trauma. That's the only thing I can really offer. And, do the things that Mr. Wilson is saying about education. I would say, if you have suffered from, like, I guess that trauma of knowing someone who was murdered, I mean, go talk to somebody.
Yep.
Go talk to. There's some free services out there. Black men.
Yep.
What's it? has lost a thought. But look it up.
We're gonna get it. We're gonna get it.
Yeah.
We should provide that.
Yeah. If I don't have it now, I'll probably put it into the video, and you can see, where you can go get the therapy. But I think it's for like black men, where you can get free. I think at least the first sessions are free. You can get counseling and grief counseling. That is. And I think that's important too. And some of these resources out here, unfortunately, systemically, we don't have the answers right now. I'm being honest. The answer is that we have to fight against it collectively over a period of time. It's not going to be a TikTok video that we can solve the problem. It has to be some systemic, long, strategic planning, economically and educationally. So it's, all the groups out there, you have to think long line. And my last thing, I will say that we do have to make, unfortunately, I know that we say we don't want to do manufacturing. I think that would solve a lot of, imagine 1,300 people working in a manufacturing job that a business was created here in Philadelphia. Imagine the magnitude of that. Making something, 1,300 people making something instead of shooting folks.
Wow. I think that that's going to be valuable. I think that we definitely have to do that. So let's get on that.
Yeah, let's get on it. Yeah,
if that's what it is, let's get on it.
I mean, because Farrakhan, he did mention that the pledge that we had
absolutely
was to build businesses and factories in our neighborhoods. That was one of our pledges in the Million Man March.
It absolutely was.
And I don't see many. I don't see that many.
Right. I'm
being honest, guys. Yeah. We got to do better. I have to do better, and I'm trying my best. So I think that's it for me. You have any last thoughts?
No, I think that's it. I think that though we'll have to continue this discussion.
Yes.
We're going to get some additional resources. Mr. Sellers and I were going to get some additional
call me
resources.
Mr. Sellers.
I know. But you call me Mr. Wilson, and that's what triggered it.
Okay. But I did in this
in this segment. You definitely did. But that's okay. I don't know why, because we just
we keep it.
It's our reflexes. Our reflexes are professional, and that's a good thing. And I thank you for that, because it's that type of decorum that helps us as men to recognize that we can give each other respect. Like that's what's missing in the in our community oftentimes, is that we have this feeling that we can't give each other respect. That if I give you respect, it makes me look like a sucker, right? And it makes me look like I'm someone that can be taken advantage of. And that whole illusion in the minds of some of these young people, that they are going to look bad because they give respect or because they don't get respect, is part of the problem. So yes, you are Mr. Sellers. I enjoy calling you that. In fact, it gives me honor to call you that. It makes me feel good to do that, because you're my brother. And I think that that small gesture of respect and kindness is something that needs to be magnified, or at least used a little bit more, so that it can get back to it being a regular thing, and not something that is so something that is missing so much in our community.
That's good.
Get back to that.
That's true. So we have to get back to work. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you while we snuck off.
Right. And hopefully we'll have a different discussion next time, or we can continue this. But join us. Subscribe to us on YouTube. That's at True Rebels Attain Victory. We're also connected to Twitter, and we have an Instagram page, True Rebels Attain Victory. Thank you for joining us. Peace and love.
Thank you, guys.